Welcome to the Boomer Briefing Podcast, where we help you solve a critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. I am your host today, Amanda Wilkie, a consultant here at BoomerConsulting, and with me today is Joshua Kirk. Joshua is the Chief Technology Officer at Smith & Howard Advisory. And today we're going to be talking to Joshua about really becoming a thought leader and how that can impact your firm. So first, Joshua, thank you very much for being here with me today. I've really been looking forward to our conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me. I've also been looking forward to talking to you and discussing a little bit about being a thought leader. So.
Yeah, you've got to be one of my favorite people in the profession these days. I really enjoy our conversations at the CIO circle and the ones we've had in the Boomer technology circles, and now the process circle as well. And I remember last year in 2022 at the Boomer Technology Summit last August in Kansas City, you were presented an award. So Boomer Technology does what we call the Bridging the Gap Award. And Joshua, you won the Contributor of the Year Award. Now, what that means is we identified you as someone who really listens well, communicates, it really brings value to the community and to your peers. So that community being public accounting and technology, and really the intersection of those two. And I remember us having a conversation afterwards where you talked a little bit to me about how that award, what that award really meant to your firm and how it kind of impacted your firm. And we went off on this great conversation, and that's why I wanted to kind of recreate that here for our listeners. So if you don't mind, recap that a little bit. How did winning that award really impact the firm?
Well, first of all, I really appreciated it. It was a surprise to me. So I still really appreciate getting that. But the big thing with the firm was, I'll be honest, when I went into it, I really didn't realize how much of an impact it was going to have across people and affect our working with the firm. I received a lot of congratulations, of course, but what I also got was a lot of people reaching out, asking questions, wanting to make contact with me, with our firm, and understand more of what we're doing, understand what it is we're out there talking about, what it is we see. But also just wanting to share back. They had ideas, they had thoughts, they had questions, they had things. And I've certainly, while I may have gotten the award for being connected, I feel probably 10 times as much connected now as I did before, because just the amount of sharing information back and forth has been tremendous. And we've actually entered into some sharing workshops with other firms just because of that.
Oh, that's awesome. So you're actually working with other firms and collaborating on some technology things, I'm assuming?
Yes. I mean, I'll share a little bit. We've done a lot of work with developers. It's a big area, APIs, developing your own code, building your own systems. It's a bit of a new thing for our industry, especially for firms outside of the big four. But so there's a lot of shared, do we have to all build the wheel, or can we come together a little bit and build a common wheel? And so there's a lot of conversations that we're starting to have, and that really kicked it off. I got a lot of outreach from fellow CIOs and people outside of the technology area that wanted to talk and understand what's going on and how they could participate.
Yeah. I know this isn't a surprise to you. It won't be a surprise to a lot of our listeners who are members of the Boomer communities, but we always talk about the value of those peer communities and the relationships that you really build there, and how you can become, a thought leader in those circles by showing up, communicating, sharing, being open as well, because, let's face it, we're all trying to do some of the same things here. We're not trying to recreate the wheel. And a peer community is a great place to get some of that information to take back to your firm. And I already mentioned the circles that you participate in within the Boomer communities, but where else do you go to kind of get some of those insights and get those thoughts as a thought leader, if you will?
So my firm, we're a member of BDO, so we turn to our alliance with BDO. We also turn to other firms. There are some firms that share similar technologies, share similar views. We've met some of those through Boomer, And so we've built some small communication groups within that. I recently went to the BDO conference. I spoke there, but I also got a chance to meet with a lot of people, talk to a lot of people. I got a lot out of that, made a lot of connections, and I'm looking forward to the AICPA conference next year. And we're also doing the Thomson Reuters conference this year. So conferences are a big place, but I'll be honest with you, those are my networking opportunities. That's where I meet the people, I connect with the people. It's the offline connections from there. It's building that relationship beyond just going to the conference, hearing what was said, consuming that, but digesting it, processing it, and then coming out with the questions that you want to ask and talk to that person and follow up on, and making that next step. Reach out to them and say, hey, you talked or spoke, or we discussed at this event, a particular topic or subject, and I'd really like to explore this further with you, understand it better, see where you guys are going with it. If nothing else, I get a different perspective. I may walk away from it with well, that's not the direction we're going to go, but I've been exposed to a different perspective and have either reinforced the direction we're going or maybe even found a better way to go.
Yeah. And I love that you mentioned that you're actually speaking at an upcoming conference. I remember when I was in a similar role to you, I felt like I was always going to conferences. I loved being able to speak at those conferences because it is such a great opportunity to represent your firm, at these conferences and really show how innovative, how progressive the firm is, which is great. I mean, think about that from a talent perspective and think about that from, just a client perspective. But I'm curious because, again, when I was in your role, I felt like sometimes I didn't do much other than go to conferences. And I feared that sometimes it appeared from the outside looking in that that's all I was really doing. Do you ever have that feeling? Have you ever gotten that feedback, or how do you combat it?
I've absolutely gotten that feedback. Said in jest and from a positive place within the firm. But there was some question up front, like why does our CTO need to be out there speaking? Why does he need to be out there at these conferences? Shouldn't he be back working with his team on the servers and the network and the systems? And that's all great. But the reality is the role, and this is as your firm grows and as our industry matures a bit in some of these areas around infrastructure and structure of the organizations, it's a very strategic role. It's about understanding the big picture. And it's hard to understand the big picture if you can't look over the horizon a little bit and see what's coming. Otherwise, you're constantly in a reactionary position. So a big part of it is what you bring back and how you share that. You bring back the connections. You also bring back the information. And sometimes you have to just provide context. Maybe they went to the same event you went to, but the perspective and the context they saw versus what I saw. And so that's a bit of how I've helped out around that area of people like, well, why are you going to all of these events? And why are you speaking at these things? What's the help for that? On the more direct side, we've seen a positive result from our recruiting and even our marketing side in that other firms and people within the industry have seen me and others speak, and they recognize that we're a well-rounded firm that looks at technology as an enabler and an investment. And quite honestly, a lot of people want to work somewhere that is how technology is viewed and used.
Yeah, and I agree with you. The role of CTO, CIO, it should be one of those more strategic roles. So hearing people say, well, shouldn't you be back with your team? Shouldn't you be helping them do? Really, if you've done your job and you've got the right people in the right seats on the bus, yes, they need your guidance, but they don't need you standing there to make sure that they'd ever get everything done. So you're actually giving them more opportunity if you've set them up for success, and then you can go and be at these conferences. So you mentioned, Joshua, other people on your team going or speaking to at conferences. Do you send a lot of people to conferences, or what does that look like? How do you incentivize them to get involved?
So we consider it a part of our investment in our people. One of our big values at our firm is our people and our continued investment and growth of our people. So we absolutely work to send people to conferences that are going to be of value to them and to the firm. We send a number of people to the Boomer different circles, even outside of technology. We have people outside of technology that are in some of the boomer circles, but we also have, as you mentioned, the process, and we send people to our process circle. I no longer attend the boomer technical circles. I've transitioned to the CIO circle, but we didn't want to leave that space because it's a great place to connect. And so I now bring a manager, and he brings a junior engineer, and both of them now attend. And in fact, one of our process people is going to be speaking in front of the technology circles at the summit. So we absolutely bring people to that. But then on a more technical side, and this is something that I don't always see and hear in our industry, we are sending our people to very technical conferences. We send them off to conferences about particular applications, whether it's a Microsoft technology or an accounting industry technology. So the ones that are not as interested necessarily, or I should say more interested in the deep technology side of it, we want to make that same investment in them. And we do that by involving them along those product lines. And we've gotten great feedback on it. Our staff enjoys the fact that they get to learn and grow and develop. And the general firm staff feels like that all of our team members are a lot more informed and a lot more capable because of it.
Yeah, and I'm excited your person who's coming to the technology circles or the technology circles. Sorry. I go to so many, I get them confused too. I remember the conversation, and your team members that were there said that they had someone that would be great to talk about the topic that we were talking about, automation and the process around automation. And I remember your team members, they didn't want to volunteer someone, but they said, we know we've got someone good, but we don't want to volunteer them. And I knew, I was like, you're Smith and Howard, like you're going to see this as an opportunity. And that's something that I appreciate about your firm. And I think that's one of the reasons that your firm and your team are so highly respected in the profession, is that you welcome these types of opportunities to share the innovative things that you're doing with other people in the profession, which of course makes the rest of the profession even better. So we've talked a little bit about opportunities within the firm, and you talked about collaborating with other firms, but are you working with with vendors? Do you see any type of benefit there?
Very much so. Ever since we've started communicating and talking more about these things, ever since we've been out there more, we're absolutely having vendors come to us and say, hey, we're thinking about this new idea, or we want to test this new product, or we want to explore this area. Do you have any interest in that? And it certainly gives us an opportunity for the areas that we want to work and develop in to not only deepen our relationship with our current vendors, but open up the potential new ones with new vendors. But we also get a little early peek at some of this technology. We get to have an opportunity to have a bit of a say, give some feedback and say, hey, this works well for us, this doesn't, give a little direction to that. Overall, that's been great for us. We've developed, a lot of things internally, but we couldn't have done it without the work and assistance of our vendors. And so building those stronger relationships, building the deeper relationships where I'm not just talking to our great sales rep at Thomson Reuters, but I'm also communicating with, developers and product management staff and even managers of strategy along their product lines to be able to understand the bigger picture of where they're going. Because at the end of the day, our industry is driven by a small number of very strong vendors. And as a consequence, you need to know where they're going. Because if you're going this way and they're going that way, you're going to have a problem. So we want to stay on that horizon view of understanding where they're looking to go and be able to give input and do our own growth and planning from that.
Yeah. So my last question for you, Joshua, is for firms that are out there, or IT leaders or just IT staff that are excited about the things that their firms are doing and they want to get them out there and be a little bit more vocal and share with the profession, any advice on how to actually do that or how to get started?
Step up and speak. share. You can do it in a small group with a small group of people after a meeting and just talk, or as you get more comfortable, stand up and share a bit in the meeting. There's a lot of concern at times, like, well, I don't want to give away the secret sauce, or I don't want to give away a competitive advantage. And that's absolutely a real concern and something you want to watch out for. But the reality is there's a lot of things we're all doing, and it's not really a competitive advantage. It's just not having to do all of the work 100% yourself. If everyone's doing it, there's not really an edge to it necessarily. The other thing is you don't necessarily, we're not sharing always code. Sometimes we're just sharing the path we took, or we're just talking about the project management and who we involved. So that's not really any secret sauce or secret recipe there. That's more of process. That's more of perspective. That's more of planning. And you can start there. Start in a space like that you're comfortable in. And then as you build deeper relationship with vendors and with other firms where you have that thicker trust, you can begin to share at a deeper level and maybe even work out sharing agreements, which is something we're in process with. So it all starts with being open and being willing to put yourself out there. Start with a question. Is anyone else doing this? Is anyone else facing this problem? We so often feel alone. Sometimes just vocalizing that and having a room full of people go, you can see the relief and sigh from all of them go, oh, I'm not the only one. Thank you. And then the conversation starts. So, sometimes you just have to step out and say, okay, I'm going to put this out there.
Yeah. I think that is great advice. And again, Joshua, I see you and I see Smith and Howard as one of those firms that they are innovative. They are investing in their people, they're investing in the technology, but they're also investing in making the profession better by sharing those things. And as we've discussed, there's benefits to the individual, there's benefits to the firm, there's benefits to the profession overall. So I would like to thank you and thank Smith and Howard for doing that, for actually stepping up. I really appreciate that. And thank you again for your time today and for sharing all of your insights. For our listeners, if you enjoyed this conversation, we release a new podcast every Tuesday morning, and we talk about we talked about leadership and thought leadership today, but we also cover topics related to technology, process, talent, and growth, all 5 pillars that Boomer covers. What all of these topics really have in common is they are really crucial to your firm's success, and helping you solve that critical business issue in 20 minutes or less. So if you like what you've heard, please subscribe, and thank you again for listening.